Hi.
What up?
Hello.
Sorry about that. This is my first Instagram Live ever.
This is everybody's first Instagram Live ever. I'm quite pleased that I've been the introducer.
You look so good.
Thank you. You look so good too.
Well, I've got like a giant situation on my forehead, but you know, these things happen.
Is that just because of lack of sun and too much oily food?
It's just like I was like, oh, I'm gonna be on Natty's show. It now seems like a good time to pop a pimple, and let's be honest, I fucked that up a little bit. But otherwise,
I've got a little one.
You know, it happens. It happens.
Yeah.
Let's see. I could even do this, or I could just not be vain. You look the mustache. Let's talk about it. Can we start there?
Let's start at the mustache.
It looks so good.
Oh, thank you. I wasn't sure what you were going to say.
No. It's beautiful. Did you have it the last time I came to New Orleans?
No, but we did talk about it because we talked about facial hair, and I talked about how I get called Mr. Bean a lot when I'm clean shaven. And so sometimes when I get tired of that, I will grow some sort of facial hair because my hair, I don't know, does your hair grow very fast? Mine does.
My facial hair grows very fast.
Yeah, I'm like one of those, remember those magnetic Woolly Willy toys you get at the gas station? I'm like one of those. I could shave it off and like 2 weeks later I can do whatever. I can do this. So sometimes I do the Clark Gable one, which I think looks good. I look almost exactly, hold on one second. Let me show you something here.
I'm very excited where this is going. Also, hi everyone. While he's going to do that, thank you so much for joining us. I'm trying to look a little bit fashionable. All right, let's see it.
I look almost exactly like my grandfather.
Oh, can I be, no disrespect to your grandfather, but I'd argue you're handsomer.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
But it's a good look. I gotta say, mustaches are maybe my favorite thing. Like, obviously, I love a good beard, but
why are mustaches your favorite thing?
So that's literally what I was just trying to, like, I was trying to think about what that is. I don't know if it's like, because I have a little bit of a thin upper lip, so maybe it's something about that. I'm like lifting it up. But also a beard, right? Obviously you can still keep a beard well groomed, but like what you're doing, the Clark Gable, right? Like, cause do you have to shave a little bit above it?
I do, yeah. In fact, they make miniature mustache razors. You have to special order. I don't use them. I have one, but I don't use it ever. Because you have to order these special like trapezoid shaped razors to get into the, or you can buy, they sell ladies bikini razors.
It's the precision. I think that's what I love about it. It's the precision of because even if you get a big cowboy, right? Like even if you got like a real big bushy one, that's
like
still
a Sam Elliott.
Yeah, that's a perfect example. It still requires maintenance. Even Sam Elliott, God amongst men, definitely sometimes still just has to take a pair of little scissors to it.
Yeah.
And I think there's something about that I just absolutely love. The Mr. Bean thing, I won't lie. I remember telling you, I don't believe it. You don't look like Mr. Bean at all. But then you made it one face.
Yeah, I make a Mr. Bean face. I'm not going to do it right now. But I am going to ask, have you ever just had a mustache?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. So, and this is the thing for me. I think it's another reason why I like them, because we always like what we can't obtain, right? Okay. You need a jaw. You need a good jaw. So when I rock a mustache, it usually means that I'm in at least halfway decent shape. And when I've got a big beard, it's more about, oh, look, let me make myself a chin. And the mustache for me is like, I won't lie, I feel like there's like 3 photos of myself with a mustache, obviously probably when I'm a bit younger, where I'm like, that's the most debonair, that's the most handsome. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not up here like spreading self-hate. I look great.
Yeah,
big beards look great.
Beautiful beard.
I'm a big boy. I love it. I love everything about it. But the Clark Gable is such a good it's just it's suave. It's fucking, that's the word I'm looking for. Mustaches are suave.
See, I think I agree, but I also think I like it because it walks a fine line between suave and sleaze. Because this is a gigolo mustache, kind of. In fact, I was once speaking to an Italian tailor, and now I won't. Hopefully, none of your children's book audience will be listening to this. But this Italian tailor said, he said, "Do you know what we call this in this kind of mustache in Italy? It is for the gigolo." And I said, "Oh, yeah? What do you call it?" He goes, "We call it liquisticcia." And I said, "What does that mean?" He goes, "It means pussy licker mustache." It's like, well, that's amazing. And it is like, it's kind of the John Waters thing. So it's a little bit sleazy too.
That's what I was gonna say the last time I was in New Orleans. We had a great discussion of John Waters as well. Yes. And you're absolutely right. Because what's that? It's a pencil. Technically,
he's got the pencil thin mustache with no gap in the middle, which he partly draws on, I think.
It's basically it's the John Waters mustache is what it is. And you're right. It's like that's the other thing I like about the mustache. The skinnier, like Sam Elliott, great example. I would trust that man with my life. The skinnier a mustache gets, the sleazier it gets.
Yes.
And there's something beautiful about that as well.
Yeah. I also think, well, so I'm going to be honest with you, I'm probably going to shave this off tomorrow. Because I can also grow it back really fast, but I'm supposed to do some sort of at-home photo shoot for a magazine with Sarah, and I think it'll go better if I don't have the mustache. Sarah doesn't she doesn't mind the mustache, but she prefers me either clean shaven or with a full beard. She loves me with a full beard, which is my least favorite look for me.
Okay, so that was actually going to be my next question, because you had talked about how you are like the woolly magnet guy.
Yeah.
So you've done, because I don't know, we've been friends for a little while now, but our hangouts, because I love to come down to New Orleans, they have been like brief, beautiful moments. I've never known you with like a big beard, have I?
No, I had a big sort of Dr. Zhivago kind of thing, and it was good. It requires maintenance of a kind that I don't really like.
Okay.
I don't like having to sort of condition and shampoo things often. I prefer to have things that I can trim neatly. I also think my family in India, they're all Sikhs, right? So up until my great-great-grandfather, he had a double beard. He had this sort of forked beard, which is amazing.
You have a beautiful painting of it.
I think he did that partly, maybe, I don't know, I've never seen any other pictures of him, so I don't know if that was normal or if he just did that to show off his medals in the painting. I don't know. So he had two beards, basically, and my great-grandfather had one beard, but three wives at the same time. This is a weird thing. So I don't know. I've talked, and then my grandfather had a mustache. So I think it's getting less and less hair on the face
as the years go. Did your grandfather, was that like? Do you think that was about trying to become? Because we've talked about this, and for people that are unfamiliar with your background, do you think that was like part of him trying, like your family's from India back in the day? If I remember correctly, there's some veterans involved. Do you think that was him trying to be like, I'm a modern man, like shaving the beard?
Absolutely. I think it was partly because India at that time, in like the mid 20th century, was becoming increasingly secular. And particularly if you wanted to sort of raise up through the ranks and be seen as a modern British Indian, essentially, the idea was to not be too religious looking. This idea you were kind of secular. Religion was like a secondary thing to you. It was a sort of identity, but you weren't particularly devout, because that might kind of spook the Brits a little bit. and then after independence, that's still that tradition. So another interesting thing is in the British Army, in the British Navy, you're allowed to grow a beard. Okay.
Oh shit.
But you can't grow a beard in the Army. But in the Army, not only can you grow a mustache, it used to be required that officers grow a mustache. and in Victorian era, and they did that because in India, mustaches were seen as a sign of virility, and the British sort of thought this was cool and took that on. So the big British imperial mustache is something they borrowed from Indians.
Wait, that's fascinating.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
Is that in your book? Is that where it, how?
I've never written a book that would require that information. When I write my family memoir, that'll be in it.
That is awesome.
When I finally sit down and write Cowboys and Indians, that's going to be.
I cannot wait for.
I have a good Spanish saying. I don't know it in Spanish, but it's a kiss without a mustache is like an egg without salt.
What?
Isn't that great?
That is great.
Yeah.
You're making me love mustaches even more. But here's the thing: I do want to see you with a beard, and especially because I respect Sarah's taste.
Yeah.
I can only imagine that you must look very handsome with one. So what is it about the maintenance? Like, is it like you have, because like I'm very blessed with like a pretty, I don't have to shave this. This just happened. Like,
oh really? Mine connects all the way.
It's
I mean, pretty much from ankles to nose, I'm pretty much flush, you know? I've got like a permanent union suit on. But no, I think first of all, I can't really handle the itching while it grows in. It just drives me crazy at some point. I have quite sensitive skin, and that kind of makes me go a little bit nuts after a while. So that's part of it. It's interesting because Sarah never liked beards on men, and then I told her I was going to grow one year, and she was really against it. And then I did it, and she was like, "This is great. I love this." And I think she also likes the way it feels. She likes once it grows in and gets a bit soft. She likes it.
Were you using like beard oils and stuff?
I tried all that. Yeah, it's good. I think that here in New Orleans, I couldn't imagine having it for a very long time. It's just
because it's so hot.
Yeah.
Did you what was the cost? Like, what year was it, and what was the cost? Like, why were you like, you know what, I'm gonna do a beard this year? And follow-up question. Sorry for the back-to-back.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about? Because we blew right by it, but I love the idea that you were saying maybe your great-grandfather, because I've seen that painting or photo, like, did that just to show off the medals.
Yeah, I don't know.
Would you have ever rocked that style?
I mean, if I had the patience to grow a beard long enough where I could actually fork it like that, I would absolutely try it. But I mean, that's like, I don't think even our good friend Jason Diamond, I don't think his beard has ever been quite long enough to actually. He's probably got he's had the longest beard of anyone I've known.
Same.
But I don't know. You have to. I mean, it has to come down to, right down here or something to like really get it long enough to.
It's probably like at least a year's worth of growth, right? Like
I think at least, yeah.
So so that year though, why did you decide to grow the beard?
It's because I hadn't ever done it before, and I think it was at a time, and it might be a neat kind of way of talking about that fantastic article you wrote about the haircut.
Thank you.
I have this thing about haircuts and facial hair and a lot of things where if something becomes very trendy, I try to do the opposite. So when everyone was getting that haircut that became like the sort of, it was like a hipster haircut and it was like a Nazi haircut and it was like, it used to be a lesbian haircut back in the day and like, it's been all kinds of things. But when that became popular and like before the alt-right stuff, but like when it was just kind of like the popular haircut for
like
men.
the aughts.
Yeah, when all of the sort of leather chair barbershops were coming back and like that was the thing to do, I rebelled against that and grew my hair out long. And then when people started shaving their beards off, because people all had beards at one point, that's when I was, I'm going to grow a beard now because everyone else, it's like, I won't just be one of the guys with a beard now. So it's purely a sort of like stubborn contrarian streak, I think, that I have.
I know, I'm sorry, because we can talk about the barbershop, I say, for sure. But one last follow-up on that.
Yeah.
Do you feel like that was always the case? Because you and I had, in my opinion, one of my favorite bar conversations that I've probably had in a year. And I spent a lot of time in bars.
Me too.
So that's a lot. That's a big, and it was about kind of your growing up in New York. and why fashion first became important to you. And it also became a conversation kind of about tattoos, right? And how I obviously tons and tons and tons of tattoos, but for you, fashion was this way of making a statement. Were you always contrarian in your choices, or is that something that happened at a certain point?
I think I always was, and I think it was really, not that I didn't sort of follow trends in scenes I was in or something. I wasn't immune from peer pressure or things like that. I definitely did things because other people were doing them and I thought it was cool. But
Amen.
there was always and especially, it was things that I thought girls would like, that was
Also,
often like when I was a teenager or in college, that was a guiding, my friend Kamau, I've talked to a lot about this, is the biggest lie that anyone in menswear ever tells is when they don't claim that they were doing this to impress partners. Because that's always a part of it,
It's always about
it's like It's like saying you just like to drink beer because of how good it tastes. It's like, no, there's a reason you're not drinking Coca-Cola right now. Yeah. But so, there was always this kind of contrarianism, and there was always this idea about I want to stand out a little bit. And it's something that when I interviewed all the dandies in my book, I asked them, if you lived in an elegant world where everyone dressed up like you all the time in formal clothing, would you still dress this way? And almost all of them said, no, I would have to find something else to do. And I think there's this kind of, this feeling of, I want to kind of stick out and be the opposite from what other people are doing. So sometimes it works very nicely, and sometimes it can be kind of a lonely feeling because you feel like a freak. Depends on where you are.
I love that, because it takes it a step further, and two, this is something that I think you so beautifully encapsulate is dandyism and like the link to punk and hardcore, which is to say the groups that do kind of want to do a middle finger in their own different ways, and it's a way of moving through the world while looking different. And that's so fascinating to know in your book that almost everyone that you asked was like, no, if everybody dressed this way, I would have to figure out a different way of being. That's so fascinating.
Absolutely. Yeah, I thought it was really interesting too. There were a couple people who were like, oh yes, I'd love it if the whole world was
that would be very cool too.
People. Yeah, and I think it tended to be the people who were more interested in vintage clothing that thought that way, because I think they had a kind of idea that things used to maybe look nicer. And that's sort of questionable. I think it's golden age thinking.
I think you're absolutely right, because there were still people like me dressing in potato sacks, messing up the scene.
Yeah, and there were also plenty of like poor people and black people and Mexican people who didn't get to wear nice clothes in all the photographs.
Yeah, didn't have the money. I do want to, real quick, I'm sorry, just because I haven't read a single comment.
Yeah,
but I'm Jason Diamond just said, hot take, Isaac is a dirtbag dandy.
That's good.
Which is, I would argue, absolutely true and very much genius. And that's maybe the link of that, right? Because punk is like not giving a crap, but also still somehow very high and focused fashion.
Yeah.
Dandyism, the same kind of thing.
Well, and who immediately springs to mind is who would be like the king of the dirtbag dandies? Russell Brand.
Yes.
He's got that kind of attitude, but he's like a kind of a sleazeball.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. It all comes back to mustache energy. I think mustache, it's the new BDE. Instead, like there's big dick energy, and then there's mustache, and you don't have to have a mustache to have mustache energy. You're right. It's that class, but like sleaziness mixed together. I love that.
Yeah.
That's fascinating. Sorry, I'm going to let you, I'm like peppering you with questions.
I want to hear a little bit more about how that essay came about. Were you asked to write that, or did...
No, that's a great question. Okay, so for those that are watching that aren't familiar, I wrote a personal essay, basically, and you can look it up, or I'll tweet it out or whatever, share it. It's on Medium, for Roxane Gay's imprint that she had there called Gay Magazine, and it's called When Your Racist Barber Thinks You're Racist Too, if I'm remembering the title correctly. And so how it came out, how it came to be, was actually just the core of the essay, and I talk about a lot of other things, and I kind of get a little philosophical in there. But the core moments were over the course of about 2 to 3 years when I first moved to New York, I had a horrific time finding someone to cut my hair. And I was coming from San Francisco, which, let's be honest, I love it there. It's one of my favorite places on the planet. Don't get me wrong. I know tech money is really crushing it right now, but it's a boom and bust town, and I believe in its spirit, and I know it's going to bounce back. It always has, and it always will. And I was very blessed to have a lot of wonderful people that I was connected with there. Then I moved to New York. Everything was tough. I didn't know that many people, and I was unfamiliar with like basically where to go and get your hair cut. But as we were talking about just a moment ago, there were all these incredible barber shops that opened up kind of in the late 90s, early aughts. And it's that, you know, American flag in a big wooden frame, maybe not with the right number of stars. And of course, I'm very much talking from a white perspective here, but it was very much this kind of hipster, we've got a shot of whiskey for you. And I was like, these places are cool. Kind of, and you and I have had this conversation. It was just like, these are the places, like I almost want to be these places because I love this kind of aesthetic of whiskey and old stuff, but new stuff. And I just was like, this is so cool. And I had for about 2 to 3 years, I'm not joking, I switched barbers so many times. Almost every single time I interacted with a place that I thought I was going to like, eventually something very misogynistic, sexist, homophobic, racist, something would be said, and I realized it was because of the way I looked. Like, I'm a white dude, I'm covered in tattoos, I was coming in with that high, tight haircut that you were kind of talking about. And the moment I realized I was going to have to write about it was one person showed me Gavin McInnes, who founded the Proud Boys, and there's a whole, you can read the piece, I'm not going to say the whole thing here, but basically somebody was like, oh man, like, you're interested in writing, look at this. And it was his dick, because they were partying with their dicks out. And I was just like, what does this say about me? And so that's kind of what I explore in the piece. But it's also very much about how, like, hair for me is, and we've talked about this, it's fashion. It can very much almost be like clothes or a tattoo, in that it is a way that you present yourself to the world. And even if you know you're different, who are you other than the way that you're presenting yourself to the world? Does that make sense? So it wasn't like I didn't know this was a haircut that maybe said something about me. But I'll say this, the guy that showed me that photo that caused this whole essay, and you can go read about another one, there's another guy who just didn't say anything for four haircuts. I was like, I found my dude. This dude doesn't even talk. I don't talk. We just do it. It's perfect. And then like the 4th or 5th time I was in there, he was like, the problem with freedom for religion is, and I was just like, this isn't going to be about church and state. This is going to, and yes, it was very racist and terrible, everything that came out of his mouth after that. But anyways, for me, it like, hair is a way, it's a way to like kind of say who you are in the world. But it's also a way to make yourself feel better. So it really sucked to have this thing that historically I had chosen to make myself feel better through the world, because I haven't always liked the way I looked, but I have always liked the way that I can fuck around with my hair. All of a sudden become this super loaded, super kind of fucked up thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's, so I love the essay, and it's because it hit home for me in a very, very specific way, in that, so when I was a punk, I was totally into like British skinhead style from like the late 60s.
Yeah.
You know, Doc Marten boots. I never had a fully shaved head, but I had like very short hair and sideburns, and you know, Fred Perry shirts, which have now been co-opted by Proud Boys.
Yeah.
And in fact, so some of the skinheads that I knew from on the hardcore scene, the kind of scary guys who were not, most of them were actually Latino. A lot of Puerto Rican, Dominican, Mexican guys. They were like the really tough ones. They had like spiderweb tattoos on their face and stuff, and they scared the living shit out of me. And some of them are now, a couple of those guys were in the group of Proud Boys that got arrested in New York.
Right.
So some of these guys that I knew personally on the hardcore scene and tried to keep away from are now like actually part of like the hardcore Gavin McInnes crew. So there's that weird crossover, but also, so I remembered like it was sort of, your essay spoke to me about how mainstreamed some of this kind of stuff has become in the age of Trump, with people like Richard Spencer having his haircut and wearing a nice suit and all that kind of stuff. Because back in the day, it was like, I experienced a similar thing, but it was like in a way that I thought was much more expected. Like, I was walking around with Doc Marten boots and a shaved head. And I remember one day some guy from out of town was like walking down St. Mark's Place, and he stopped to talk to me. And he was like, I got to a point where I realized he was sort of feeling me out. And he was like, yeah, you know, like, he's like, yeah, I live in Queens. I don't have any like, he's like, I'm from Boston. I live in Queens now. Like, you know, I got lots of black friends and like Puerto Rican friends. He's like, you know, I'm not, you know, as long as, you know, people don't like, you know, mix like, you know, with their kids and stuff. And I was like, really? And then I think he realized, oh shit, maybe this guy's mixed.
Or doesn't have my politics at all.
Right. But well, I think he didn't even get to that. Like, I think his mind worked so slowly that his first thought was, oh wait, maybe this guy's mixed too. So then he started sort of backtracking slowly, be like, well, except like, you know, like Hispanic and white, like that's okay. And I was like,
don't got it yet.
Yeah, he was like, or you know, like, you know, Jewish and white. And I was like, and like and eventually I was just like, I just walked away from him. He's like, oh, you know, I was like, I should have walked away from him immediately. But
Natty, it's one of the things that fascinates me about your whole background, which again, for those not watching, like Natty grew up in a crazy scene here in New York. Like, you know, I'm a bumpkin from the woods. New York was your playground even as a child. But being a person of color who passes is always just like a fascinating thing to me. But to be a person of color who passes, moving through hardcore, punk, and these different types of scenes, like and also just the ways in which I'm sure you learned and grew, because that's the other thing that the essay is really about, right? It's about the ways in which we might not even recognize how we're damaging others or ourselves, right? And the growth that comes kind of with age. Like, I mean, let's be honest, there were photos that were going to be in the essay when they published it, and we decided to pull them kind of at the last minute. But some of these haircuts, just for the record, were some of the best haircuts I've ever had in my life. I want to be very clear about that. Great haircuts, just fucking super bad, terrible, fucked up politics. But for you, like, you had friends who, like you're saying in that conversation, didn't truly understand your background or where you were coming from. And these were all things that you had to grapple with, learn, and as you grew as well, correct?
Yeah. And well, and actually, I want to, I guess, kind of amend what you were saying earlier, because I never thought of myself as a person of color who passes. In fact, what I think is more relevant to my experience is that I was a person of indeterminate background. So people often map all kinds of things onto me because of that, which is interesting. I mean, I'll have people come up to me and speak to me in Spanish or Greek or Italian or all kinds of stuff because they think I might be that.
Right.
Which is really, I mean, I wish that I like spoke all these languages so I could pretend to, you know, maybe be a secret agent or something. It'd be great. But like, unfortunately, I don't.
Just for the record, I see the gun behind you. I mean, I'm still not fully convinced that you're not a secret agent, but.
No, well, today I'm in cowboy mode. I've got my.
Well, because that's your other thing, right? You have a family from Texas.
Yeah.
Wait, no, leave that on for a second, because that was. This is what it all comes down to. It's costume changes. It's how you present. Dude, you just changed. You are now. I feel like you and I could be in Houston right now, and you could be trying to, you know, don't get me wrong, you still got the mustache, so you're definitely conning me, but you could definitely be like short selling me on some oil stuff.
I'm going to sell you a lame horse or something. When I put this hat on, actually, originally, the first time I put it on, the first thing it reminded me of was David Byrne in True Stories, because I was wearing a suit and not like a, you know.
You didn't have the bolo on.
I didn't have a bolo on, no. But I wanted to talk to you about, I mean, there's so many things I want to talk to you about. What else were you going to say? You were gonna say
No,
something else.
just that, like, I really do hope you write the book that you and I have talked about, because I just think you have such a fascinating background, and your love of fashion, mixed with the incredibly unique life experience you have had is I just hope you know. I mean, sorry, now everyone that knows me knows I'm a big old softie. Like, you're a very special person, and you have a very unique story.
Thank you.
That's all I'm trying to say. So I'm looking forward to that.
You're so sweet. I can, I'm gonna call you up anytime I'm feeling down and have you compliment me.
I like to give a pep talk. I do like to give a.
You're very, very good at it. Well, now, like, speaking of amazing things, LeVar Burton read your book. I've got a copy of it here. How to Be a Pirate. I was going to send this to my friend, but then this whole pandemic happened, so I haven't had a chance. He read your book online. That's amazing. I mean, what a dream.
So this is truly, so, like, just to keep talking background stuff a little bit, I grew up in Boston through a group called the Catholic Worker, and I lived for a brief period of time. There was a soup kitchen called Haley House, which was on Dartmouth Street. I lived on Tremont Street for a little bit, and then I lived in a kind of almost a halfway house called John Larry House on Mass Ave. We didn't have a television. We didn't have a lot of means. We didn't have a lot of money. But my buddy John, who lived across the street from the soup kitchen, had a television, and I would go over to his house and we would watch PBS and watch Reading Rainbow. And LeVar Burton, like, it's not hyperbole to say that my whole life now is based on books, and has been for a long time. I figured out how to make a living out of it, which is incredible. I love reading them. I love reviewing them. I love talking about them. I've written and made a living basically on the internet talking about books for the last decade. It all started with Reading Rainbow. And I know that that's not a unique story. That's a very common story, because that's what LeVar, you got, like, what a fascinating individual, right? Has this incredible hit with Roots. All of a sudden, like, super young, tons of attention, tons of awards, could do whatever LeVar Burton really wanted to do. And what LeVar Burton chose to do was to make a program on a channel that's not going to pay you, on a network, PBS. You're not making tons of money working with PBS, that encourages reading. Like, what an incredible, astounding choice, right? And then, don't get me wrong, makes those butts with Star Trek, The Next Generation, shout out to, like, absolutely 100% love it. But that show made me a reader. That show influenced me so much. So, years later, and during, and this, the phrase I keep, like, I use asterisks, just like gestures at everything. Like, everything that's happening. Which, Jesus fucking Christ.
Right.
To have something that important and meaningful happen, like, that feels weird. But all of a sudden, and I was sitting with my fiance, we were watching a movie, we, like, I think everyone's doing this a little bit. You, like, make little rules for our pandemic living, which is, like, how much internet time, so, like, phones were down for the evening. We're watching a movie together. She gets up to go to the restroom. I'm like, I'll just sneak a little look at the phone. And all of a sudden, like, somebody tagged me. I didn't, like, nobody had sent me an email.
Yeah.
My publicist or publisher, like, literally LeVar Burton. And, like, love you, LeVar. Absolutely no problem. You're the best. Like, my name was misspelled. No problem. But, like, that's, like, so I had been added, but I hadn't been added correctly. So that's why I didn't see it for, like, 12 hours. And all of a sudden, like, somebody just sent it to me, and, like, I lost my mind.
Yeah.
And, sorry, I'm oversharing now because I've had a drink. But, like, my fiance comes back from the bathroom, probably top 5 ugly cries she's ever experienced. And she's like, what's going on? What's wrong? And I'm just like, LeVar Burton is gonna read my book. And then I was expecting, like, something would go wrong before. But then on Monday, to wake up and experience one of the men who truly shaped the rest of my life, and that's not hyperbole to say that, reading my children's book. For the record, it's burned in my memory forever. He called me friend, which I will never forget. Said, "Love to you, Isaac," while patting his heart. Like, just put that on my tombstone. Like, make an electric tombstone, and just it's that in. Like, it was top tier. So I'm still, if I'm being honest, that happened last Monday. So like a week and some change. And I think I'm still kind of in shock. But to have that moment happen was so important because I know that, one, it obviously spoke to me, and the illustrator, Bridget Berriger, she's absolutely incredible. She did this book, Uni and the Unicorn. She also was like texting me just like, I'm in tears. But to have that moment for myself was incredible, but then also to just know that LeVar Burton is still out there during all of this bullshit.
Yeah.
And every Monday, 9 a.m. PST, noon Eastern Standard Time, he's reading a children's book to any parents out there that want a kid to sit down and watch a little bit of LeVar. LeVar reads like nobody else.
Yeah.
Then Wednesdays is doing YA, and then Fridays he's doing adult. So like he's out there pushing every week for books, and I just love that he's that committed to it.
Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Sorry.
No,
he's a saint. Too. He's a modern saint. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah. He should get the Medal of Freedom whenever we.
Listen, you shouldn't. Let's be real. Nobody should be put up on a pedestal, and it's important that we're able to critique.
Yeah.
Even especially stars, really, right? Like we should always understand that we are all human, and there's failures everywhere. But Tom Hanks and LeVar right now, they are top notch. When it was like LeVar, when it was like Tom Hanks might help come up with a COVID vaccine, I was like, that's it, sainthood. While he's alive, I'm gonna call the Catholic Church. I know it's unprecedented, but let's give it to him.
Yeah, that's amazing. I want to talk to you a little bit about pirates.
Oh, let's do it.
Because I loved pirates when I was a kid.
Yes.
I'm sort of fascinated by it. There's a little bit of overlap with dandyism.
Wait, talk more about that for a second.
Well, there's one pirate in particular whose name I'm forgetting. My father had a set of trading cards from when he was a kid, the lives of pirates. And I remember there was one of them, and I can't remember his name, who was like the gentleman pirate. He was gentleman something. I think that like his gentleman was his nickname. And he, never killed prisoners or something like that, or, he never hurt a woman and that kind of thing. But he also dressed in like fine velvet robes and, had like a perfect hat. So just like there's usually like in Westerns, there's often like a dandy gunfighter.
Yeah.
So there's a dandy pirate is definitely a thing. But I've always been interested in how pirates are this archetype for kids, right? We've taken these outlaws and made them into these kind of children's icons. They're not always good guys. Sometimes they're Captain Hook. But like, whether it's Peter Pan or your book, pirates really resonate with children. And your How to Be a Pirate explains piracy in a different way. It's an update on what a pirate is. And you take all the noble things about being a pirate from the archetype and teach those to children.
But hang on. I want to talk, because what you're saying is absolutely correct. And it's like, this is almost the space that I love to live in. Because when you really do think about it, right? Natty, when you say it out loud like that, it is wild that we take pirates, thieves of the sea.
Yes.
And to children, we're like, nah, this is cool.
Yeah.
This is like, dress up like this for
the
Halloween.
Words bloodthirsty cutthroat come to mind when you pirates, right?
Yeah. No, 100%. But I think there's a reason why it connects with children and adults and everybody in this fascinating way, which is I really believe there is this idea of freedom that is linked with having a ship, not really having a home, not a farm. Like if you have a ship, you're out there, you're doing your thing, kind of going wherever the wind blows you. And I think that's something, even as children, especially, when you're a kid, rules, being told what to do, school, all that stuff angers you.
Well, it's Tom Sawyer, isn't it? It's them running off and playing pirates, yeah.
And playing pirates, 100%. Then you add to that, like, and not to, we could talk about the history of pirates all day long. One, there have been incredible women captains who like ran all, like the history of gender and pirates is fascinating. Like you were talking about, the history of fashion and pirates is fascinating. I grew up in different areas. Like we moved around a lot, but it was always near the water. And I had a lot of like pirate history throughout my childhood, throughout my background. Even in my teenage years, I actually ended up working on these islands that are 10 miles off the coast of New Hampshire. And Blackbeard, who, if I'm remembering my history correctly, was eventually captured and killed off the coast of North Carolina?
That sounds right. Is he the one that put the firecrackers in his beard?
Yes. He loved the candles and the he had the big beard that went nuts. He had a lot of wives throughout his life. But the last one was left on these islands, and they're called the Isles of Shoals. And so there's this one island in particular. It's called Star Island. I worked basically, it was a hotel / conference center that is out there. No roads, no cops. It was one of the best jobs I've ever had in my entire life. And they have this saying, you will come back, you will come back, you will come back. They like greet the boats with it. They like say, but what that comes from is there's supposedly a ghost, and I believe technically she's on Smutty Nose, but it's the ghost of Blackbeard's wife who got left up there, and she's like, he will come back, he will come back, he will come back, because he was waiting. But sorry, now you just got me on a tangent. Not only, if you leave your wife somewhere and you're a pirate, you maybe also leave your treasure there. So for a long time, there has been a rumor, legend, that somewhere on the Isles of Shoals, Blackbeard's, like, at least one of, if not the main big one, like, buried treasure is out there. And so now, flash forward to modern times, Discovery Channel, History Channel, one of those channels, does a show about trying to find treasure.
Yeah.
The only privately owned, because like I think Smutty Nose is like a state park, or like there's also a place called Appledore out there that like they run like science, like marine biology lab, which like God bless them, and they're great. It's definitely for rich kids. It's like MIT students and stuff are over there. But there's, oh man, I'm gonna blank on the White Island. One of the islands is still privately owned.
Okay.
And they got the right, the Discovery Channel or whoever, History Channel, they got the rights, and they even did like an echo sound thing over the. They found there was an empty, hollowed out thing in the ground, and there was something in there. And at the last second, like the 100-year-old person that owned the place was like, actually, no, you can't dig. And so I think Blackbeard's treasure might still be out on the Isles of Shoals. I shouldn't be shouting this out. I should probably go look for it myself. But anyways, all that is to say that I grew up kind of surrounded by pirate legends. But the thing about them that have always spoken to me is that it's about freedom. But also, like, I've always leaned, to use a Dungeons and Dragons phrase, like chaotic good. Like, don't get me wrong, there are also some very ruthless and terrible ones. But the ones that we kind of tell stories about are the ones that maybe were fighting against the British Empire, or like some things that were not that great. And so that's why I love it. Sorry, anyways, that was a long monologue.
No, that's fantastic. That's exactly what
Lunging Island, H.A. Dickerman, Lunging Island.
Lunging Island.
Thank you very much. Now we're just giving up which island. Everyone should go look for.
The poor 100-year-old man that lives on Lunging Island is going to be besieged by Reading Rainbow viewers.
Yeah, that's right.
Did you ever play the Monkey Island video games when you were a kid?
No. So again, getting back to that, like, I didn't grow up with television. I didn't grow up. Video games are actually something I'm discovering during this. I've gotten very into video games. I bought a Switch.
Okay.
But what happens there?
Oh my God. Immediately go out and get the first game The Secret of Monkey Island, I think, is the first one.
Okay.
It's a graphic adventure game, and it's done by people from Lucasfilm Productions, and it's basically a sort of comedy about a pirate who's a really incompetent pirate who has to do these various quests and stuff. It's one of the funniest things. It's like playing a comic book, basically. You will absolutely love it.
Wait, that sounds right up my alley.
It's an old game from the 80s, and they've done like updated versions with graphics and stuff. Find it online. You can I'm sure you can download it now for your Mac, probably for $5 or something. Play it. Play that and the sequel. They're both brilliant. I think they made 4 of them. The first 2 are amazing. The third one's okay. It's so funny, and it's all about pirates, and it's I can't recommend it highly enough. It's one of those things from my childhood that's like seared into my. I've probably played through it like 50 times in my life.
It's how you make that connection. It's that again. There's something about it that children are drawn to. I'm gonna check that game out for sure. The other thing I should mention, just because I'm talking about, but like 826 Valencia is where I find myself at the age of 23. It's out in San Francisco. It's a creative writing center for children. It's fantastic. But the storefront, because basically they rented this space, but it was retail zoned, so they had to have a store in the front while they were starting all this incredible stuff. It was started by Dave Eggers and the folks who were getting McSweeney's off the ground at the time. Anyways, I ended up working there in my early 20s. So that's the other thing. I just wanted to shout that place out. So 826 Valencia, it was the pirate supply store. Again, in San Francisco, which another place that I found myself living, the Barbary Coast, another huge historical, tons of really awesome stories about pirates and the way that all worked coming up and down the West Coast. But what I loved about that store so much was that it was all like in a very tourist-centric city where there was a lot of pirate shops actually down by the wharf that would like sell you pretty plastic stuff, which don't get me wrong, as a kid, I love that stuff too. So I'm not trying to knock that, but 826 built this kind of very authentic wooden real ropes. They had a fish theater, like all this stuff. So like, yeah, like pirate, like you're saying, like there's video games, like there's a reason why pirates. And again, I would argue if you were to look at like an actual family tree, like Robin Hood is not that far off either. Sure. Like there's a reason why this group of historical figures have stuck with the culture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I guess, I mean, it is, well, we're always fascinated by outlaws, right? That's sort of right off the bat, that's just a big kind of thing, whether it's Bonnie and Clyde or whether, I mean, criminals, right? But
yeah. No, absolutely.
But you get this idea that they might be kind of, the system that they're existing in isn't that legitimate itself, right?
Right. Like who's the real criminals?
Right. And you've also, so I was reading the article today about I guess Alaska's trying to ban a whole bunch of books from the students' curriculum.
Yeah.
Have you had anyone? Have you had any negative response from people who think that you're teaching children to buck authority or something? No,
I'm so glad you highlighted that story. I couldn't believe it. Which again, I don't know why I use the phrase like I couldn't believe it. Like, of course, it still happens. Book banning still happens. It's always the Invisible Man and like the books that like the children of America really actually need to be reading, maybe now more than ever. For me, I've been waiting for it. If I'm being honest, I've been waiting for that other shoe to drop, because let's be honest, it's a book about tattoos,
right?
Which the phrase I actually always use to describe the book is like, it's not actually a book about pirates,
right?
Really,
okay.
It's not even a book about tattoos. Actually, it's a book about how spending time with a loved one and telling stories, much like you and I have been doing during this, can actually just brighten your day. Just like having a moment. And if you flip through, Bridget Berriger did this beautiful job with, at the beginning of the book, the colors are very muted. And as you get to the end, the colors get very bright. So like storytelling, spending time with people you care about, it really, really means a lot to me. But to get to like controversy, I haven't, I mean, knock on wood, now I will probably, but like, nobody has been that against it, which has been incredibly surprising to me. My publisher, Bloomsbury, sent me on a book tour in which every day of the tour, it was a week long, I went to 3 different schools in cities in vastly different parts of the country. And I was so surprised. I was like, wait, so like they're okay with the fact that this is what I'm going to come in and talk about. And that's when you also realize, though, that times have changed and, like, you know, taboos have changed, really. Because the first question I always ask the kids is, who knows what a tattoo is? Mm-hmm. And even if I was talking to kindergartners, hands were going up. I'd be like, who knows? Like, family member, they would just shout out. Like, I was in New Orleans, and I remember I was like, who knows somebody? I'm like, what do you, family, everybody. My mom, my dad, my brother, my uncle, my and like 9 out of all 10 were like, the fleur-de-lis. They have the, right. And so just like, tattoos, I think, have become so normalized. So like, I wasn't that surprised that feedback hasn't happened, at least yet. Don't get me wrong. Of course, it's like, look, no art is for everybody. To use one of my favorite lines from the masterpiece film Wayne's World, nobody makes music that everybody likes. Led Zeppelin didn't make music that everybody liked. They left that to the Bee Gees. You can't expect your art not to be critiqued, and that's fine. We all come from different walks of life, and I welcome critique. I welcome criticism. It's very important. It's part of the conversation. But it doesn't change the fact that, for the most part, even my mom, who, if I even tweet about getting a new tattoo, still writes me a heated email, actually likes this book. And so that's been an amazing thing. Real quick, I want to share Jason Diamond, our friend, who I believe you interviewed last week.
Yep.
Texted me today. He said, I've gifted your book to 3 different people. And he sent me this message. His friend was like, just for the record, my child is now obsessed with tattoos. And he calls tattoos pirate skin.
Oh, that's cool.
And that, to me, I was like, I'm like, shut it down. That's the only, like, that is the coolest thing I have ever heard. And like, that's all I need.
That's amazing.
Yeah. Real quick though, not to turn it back to you but like, you have 0 tattoos, correct?
I have what? I have 0 tattoos. Yeah.
Can we just, because again, like, I just remember that as a fascinating conversation. Like,
yeah.
Could you talk? And that's, people ask me that sometimes. They're like, oh, should I get a tattoo? And the first thing I always say is like, look, at this point, I think not having a tattoo is actually more unique than having a tattoo.
For our generation, certainly. No tattoo is the new tattoo.
Right. Exactly. But then also, it's like, you should never feel like, if you want it, if it's something you're interested in, go for it. But like, you should never feel pressured about it. But like, have you ever come close, or could you tell me a little bit about?
I've never come close to the effect that I've went to the trouble of going to a tattoo artist and inquiring how much it would cost or anything like that. When I was younger and I was in the punk scene and all that kind of stuff, I considered it, and I'm really glad I didn't, because I probably would have gotten something. I would have gotten a Misfit skull or something that like everyone had. You know, it wouldn't have been anything. Do you have a Misfit skull?
Yeah, I don't have a. I've got like a Celtic Tree of Life that looks like Spider-Man getting his Spideys. I got some bad stuff.
All right, yeah, right. So people have, I would have gotten something that like wouldn't have been that interesting, I think. But I'm glad I did. I didn't, because my parents, and I think my mom's watching right now, were vehemently against it. Although my mom has now softened her opinion and has talked about getting a tattoo herself. My dad is completely against it. But I'm glad I didn't now, because by the time I had gotten that sort of bug out of my system, where I thought that it would be a cool thing to have, it didn't seem like that unique a thing to me anymore. Again, maybe it's just contrarianism. Suddenly it was like, well, actually, even the sorority girl in my dormitory has, a tramp stamp or a dolphin on her ankle or whatever, and it's like, okay, so it's everyone, like, I know people who have gauges in their ears who don't know the same bands I know. They're like they grew up listening to NSYNC, and they've got like gauges and purple hair, and I'm like, all right, so that's like just a thing that people do now, right? It doesn't signify what it used to.
I love you touching upon how it became, like, it is still part, like Natty. It's, again, I can't wait for. I love your writing, and I can't wait for more of it. But like this core that you have of contrarianism, and it has become so popular that it's almost your way of pushing back against it. And then I also remember we were at BJ's, a great bar in New Orleans, which John Stanton, who's a great journalist, he wrote a wonderful piece about it. It's in Slate that people can go look up. But you and I, we didn't know it at the time, but this was some of the last conversations out in the real world that I had before the shit really hit the fan here. But you and I had a wonderful conversation about all this, and I remember kind of saying it. I'd had maybe 2 beers in case my mom's watching too. But I remember saying like, oh, but also clothes and aesthetic. At a young age, especially growing up in New York, you realize the power of that, and those could almost become your tattoos. Like I got my first tattoo when I was 17. Let's be honest. We look at a photo of me. Style is not the first or 27th word that's going to come to mind if you see the way that I looked when I was 17. But for me, there was something unique and mystifying about it. Whereas you had kind of already found a way to express yourself.
Yeah, I won't say I hadn't like nailed my style at 17 or by any means, but it was something that I was like actively, pursuing and thinking about constantly. It was, and I think, and there's another element of this, which is I also know people who are obsessed with fitness, and I think for them, that's their kind of dandyism or something. That's their self-decoration. Is their sort of they're sculpting their body, right? And those are the people who spend a lot of time at the gym and they get a 6-pack and they walk around without a shirt on, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't do that because I'm lazy and I don't want to spend all my time at the gym. I'd rather just get a nice shirt. But I get it for them. I understand why people would do that.
First off, I bet you look beautiful, no matter which way, shirt or no shirt. But the other thing I'll say, sorry, just real quick, because you just talked about that, I want to shout. You must have seen the Arnold Schwarzenegger Pumping Iron. Is that what it's called?
Yeah.
Because that I'm sorry, I never really made that connection of tattoos and style and dandyism like you're talking about. And but I'll never forget at one point in that film, and he's so mean to Lou Ferrigno, like but at one point in that film, he talks about how he's like, I consider myself an artist. My sculpture is just my own body, and if I see that something feels like it's missing, I'll just pump iron until it builds up. Yeah. And as somebody that, like, again, because it's also about growing older, and as you grow older, I think you have more empathy, right? When I was a kid, it's like, fuck jocks, fuck, like gym rats, like, no, like, not my, like, they're the worst. Right. And now you realize, like, oh, like, no, like, we're all kind of trying to express the same thing, but in these very different ways.
Now, we're about to get cut off, but I just want to bring it around to the beginning. The thing to remember is when you meet someone who has muscles, tattoos, and a tailored suit, they're probably a Proud Boy.
Which screw those guys forever. Or I would argue I'm sorry, now I'm shouting out. Man, I can't remember his name. The actor in Train to Busan, which if you haven't seen it, is amazing. But he was a very swole guy in a beautiful suit, and he turned out to be great. So you can never judge anyone ever.
Like an Ultimate Fighter. Right. Ultimate Fighters all have suits and tattoos and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly.
Isaac, we're about to get cut off, but this is marvelous, and we could talk so much more about so many other things. And depending on how long this goes on, maybe I'll, we'll circle back and do this again. I
would love that, Natty. I love you so much. Love to you. Love to Sarah. I'm so glad everything's all right down there in New Orleans.
Love to you and yours. And let's also chat offline at some point on the phone or something. Just to
I would love that. Have a little Zoom cocktail.
That sounds perfect. All right, maybe with Jason.
All right, brother. Thank you. That would be perfect too. Thank you, brother. Have a great day.
Oh, so good.
Night. That was perfect.